Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Kopi Chats with me, your host, Waylene, talking about all the news fit to chat about on the internet. And today's, we're all about the World Economic Forum. So, check it out. Malaysia's Health Minister and Finance Minister, Health Minister Khairy Jamaluddin and Finance Minister Tengku Zafrul met with the mastermind, the Dr. Evil himself, Klaus Schwab, Professor Klaus Schwab, and talking about the potential areas of collaboration between the World Economic Forum and Malaysia. Isn't that something? Now, you may have heard, the World Economic Forum and Davos, many times throughout the years, but if you're like me, someone who cares about the news but doesn't really look into it all that much, you may never actually have seen anything in Davos. Like, what does Davos look like? You keep saying Davos. What is it? Well, Davos, it turns out, is actually some kind of Swiss resort town. It's very small, and yeah, here you can have a look at it. It occupies this area right here. In the center is Parsen, a large ski resort. What, 12-kilometer run? Or 1.2-kilometer run? I'm not sure. I guess that means there's some skiing terminology. So where is it in Switzerland? Oh, it's close to Liechtenstein. Okay, there you go. So all the way on the east side of Switzerland. And what does the Davos town look like? Well, we were just looking at it, and let's jump right back in. So it's a pretty unremarkable Swiss town. Look at it. Just look at it. It looks so normal. I mean, it's rather charming. You see that's a nice little hotel there. And these are some shops. Oh, snowboarding shop. But, it totally doesn't look like... Ooh, what's that? Bakarai. I know that. That's bakery. Cafe, konditori. I don't know that. So... that totally doesn't look like a place where evil geniuses gather, to plot evil schemes. There's a swatch shop. So now you've seen it. Now you know a little bit about what at least the town area of Davos, like this tiny little town. And I'm sure there are many more areas which are ski resorts and maybe some fancy villas, on the snowy hillside that are inaccessible to the public. I'm sure those exist. I'm sure they do. Come on, it's Switzerland. There are plenty of rich people around. But yeah, and so it turns out that every time they have the World Economic Forum, they turn the town into like an enormous open air exhibition area, right? As you can see here, this is the Indonesia Pavilion. We just took up one shop lot. They turned it into the venue for talking about Indonesia. Potential investors, they can go to Indonesia Pavilion and talk to Indonesian officials, leaders, to try to forge some kind of partnership, make some deals, right? So that's what it is. And even this time around, Indonesia's economic minister was speaking to his Qatari counterpart, right, at the forum. So this all like just a big gathering of world leaders, billionaires, industrialists, all that sort. And here's a fun fact: in 2013, they had this big video wall show what's the buzz of the conference, and the most retweeted was Malaysian Prime Minister at the time, Najib. I'll bet he's not attending this time around. Even the Singapore Straits Times sponsored a panel discussion. You can see here, Davos 2022 Strategic Outlook on ASEAN. Sounds like a big deal. Yes, here you can see here, developed in partnership with Straits Times, and the panelists were Secretary General for the OECD, big deal, I think, European organization. CEO of Petronas, Malaysia's national petroleum company. Let's see, Indonesian Chamber of Commerce coordinating vice chairwoman number 3. Wow, that that's very far down in the bureaucracy, but it must be huge organization, huge I say. And then see, senior fellow for some fancy institution, and the closing remarks by the Cambodian Prime Minister. So, as you can see, yeah, big powwow for who's who, right? And I never really understood why people talk about it as it's some really sinister. Okay, there are those who talk about it, like the Straits Times do, as this meeting of minds, the best and the brightest being there. And then there are those who talk about it as this dystopian, summit of evil geniuses plotting to dominate the world. I never really figured it out for myself. And it seems like one of those things which you'll see something different depending on your outlook on the world, on politics. It just seems that way. Now, this is all over the news right now. And on Channel News Asia, there's commentary talking about how the Ukraine war is casting its shadow over Davos. And there are plenty of anecdotes about, yeah, you can see there was a doctor recently evacuated from Mariupol, this Ukrainian city, giving a tearful testimony, right? That converted what was previously called Russia House, now converted into Russia War Crimes House, which was the shop house like you saw for Indonesia, but for Russia, was turned into art exhibition, a photo exhibition to showcase the horrors of war. Might be a little unfair to Russia, just taking away their house, but it's not fair for Russia to invade Ukraine either. So, and it seems that there are many people, with all kinds of anxieties and concerns about this. Let's see. One energy industry boss predicts by this time next year, the EU will have successfully weaned itself off Russian gas. But Western economies could soon come under politically intolerable strain if food and energy prices spike higher. Yeah, so everybody's thinking about that. David Beasley, executive director of the World Food Program, told a panel that unless the Ukrainian port of Odessa is open in the coming weeks, there will be famine. So plenty of preoccupation with the war in Ukraine. Totally expected. And in fact, Ukrainian President Zelensky was a major figure. He addressed the attendees, I think in Ukraine House, maybe in Russia War Crimes House, I'm not sure. It definitely seemed to be popping up everywhere, just from what I was reading of tweets saying that he's, here and there. And yeah, it seems that his message was, give us more guns and stop, trading with Russia. And you can see it right here. Yeah. Appeal for more weapons for his country and maximum sanctions against Moscow. Saying that if you had sent me more guns, tens of thousands of lives would have been saved. Yeah. He's definitely, pushing the envelope really hard. That's why we need all the weapons we ask for, not just the ones that have been provided. Right. And calling for an oil embargo on Russia, punitive measures against all its banks, and the shunning of its IT sector. Wow, really harsh. And yeah, even the World Economic Forum official Twitter account posted his address, and that seems to be one of the main themes of this year's forum. Now, let me show you a little bit about what's going on at Davos with regards to Ukraine. Look, so they got a Ukraine house, and ironically, it's kind of funny, and perhaps there's highly symbolic. I don't know if there's more symbolism to it. If you really think about it, yeah, Ukraine is a casino in Davos. Seems almost like some kind of hidden message, right? This is reported by Rebel News, independent Canadian media. Very interesting. And what else? Let's see. Oh yeah. So they turns out that the WF people turned the Russia House into Russia War Crimes House. Yeah, in place of vodka is a harrowing photo exhibition of atrocity crimes. Aren't atrocities crimes already? I don't know, right? So this is reported by the New York Times. What else? And even famous Former Secretary of State of the USA, Henry Kissinger, came to give an address, and contrary to all expectation, because he is famously a warmonger, famous for that, not even in doubt. He said Ukraine should cede territory to Russia to help end the conflict and ensure Europe's long-term stability. Russia is important in Europe while the US is a troublemaker. Yeah, as reported by the Washington Post. So Henry Kissinger calling for peace. Yeah, very strange. Something doesn't, sit well in the mind. Isn't that very funny? But that's not all. So it turns out, somebody else reports, journalist Aaron Mate reports, the New York Times editorial board, usually a supporter, of U.S. militarism, is realizing that shunning diplomacy to escalate a war is not a good idea. Right. So what changed their mind? Henry Kissinger and the New York Times editorial board. Very strange. Might have something to do with the 40 billion. 40 billion that the Ukraine received from the United States. They just 40 billion was just approved to be sent to Ukraine to support the Ukrainian war effort. Now, for context, turns out that the entire war in Afghanistan, from start to finish, cost something like $85 billion US. 85 billion, that's a huge amount of money. I don't even know how much the let's see, what's the size of the GDP of Malaysia, where I'm from. Looking it up. 336 billion. That's a huge amount of the Malaysian GDP. Most countries spend what, 1% of their GDP on defense. So that would be 336 would make 3 billion, maybe 4, if you round up. So this is 10 times that. Huge. So anyway, what led to the change of opinion, right? Because here's the funny thing. Ukraine's given $40 billion. Then, soon after that, the warmonger, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger says, oh, you know what? We should be suing for peace now. And then New York Times editorial board, also known for being, warmongers, they also say the same thing. We should go for peace now. And if they go for peace, does the Ukraine give back the $40 billion? Probably not, right? So, feels very fishy. Even worse that, all this is taking place against the backdrop of the World Economic Forum. Already an event considered very fishy. Okay, moving on. There are people doing, so speaking of New York Times, a New York Times deputy managing editor, Rebecca Blumenstein, was accosted by a Rebel News journalist. Again, Rebel News, a Canadian independent media. I respect them a lot. They covered these trucker protests in Canada, and I think they faced a lot of trouble for doing so. And you can see here, this journalist, what's his name? Avi. He's trying to talk to Rebecca Blumenstein, and all she does is shake her head and ignores him totally. So it turns out that, at least it's reported that Rebecca was an invited guest, and so Avi asked the question, so if you're invited here, you're treated as part of the gang, how can you be expected to be impartial and report on what you see, and things that, ask the difficult questions? Because there are things that beg a lot of questions, and I actually saw a little bit of that, so let me show it to you right now. Here we are, the Alibaba Group President, J. Michael Evans, telling the World Economic Forum of an individual carbon footprint tracker. So I think he is, so maybe an app? I'm not really sure. But either way, you'd have this way to track your carbon footprint and how much, what you eat, what you buy, where you travel. Wow. Sounds really dystopian. And then famous cartoonist Scott Adams said this, and I think it's very succinct, that well, he probably flew there on a private jet. Enough said. Which is a perfect comment. So here you are. He's pitching his promoting here the Alibaba individual carbon footprint tracker into telling you that you ought to pollute less, consume less for the good of the environment. And he got there probably, I'm not sure about this, probably got there by private jet. How does that make you feel? Pretty shitty, isn't it? So it kind of puts a bit more context into what Avi was doing in the previous video, talking to the New York Times editor. And that's not all.
As Seth
Here we go
knows,
again.
we're now throwing
Rebel
those
news.
into the garbage. It's sad to say. I'm in the process of throwing 30 million doses into the garbage because nobody wants them. We have a big demand problem.
Do you hear that? That was the CEO of Moderna, the pharmaceutical company with the COVID vaccine, saying that he has to get rid of 30 million doses because nobody wants them. Big demand problem, he says. Well, yeah, because people are starting to go have their lives go back to normal. Now, granted, this is not particularly sinister, but it shows you what's on his mind, right? Like, and I think this is why there are people who view the World Economic Forum as very, very dodgy, because I think it is here that the rich and the powerful are more comfortable speaking with a little more freedom about how they view the world. And with Mr. Bancel of Moderna, he's talking about this crisis the world that the whole world went through together, led to untold suffering. And the way that he talks about it is like, oh, this is a business opportunity that we did not optimize well for. We are left with a lot of unsold stock, and it's such a we may make a lot of losses. And it's so unpleasant to talk about that after all the lives, all the suffering that everybody endured, including you who are listening. I wouldn't say I suffered exceptionally, but yeah, there were times when it was really unpleasant. So yeah, it doesn't sound really nice to hear him talking about his 30 million doses, which nobody really cares for. And that kind of gels with also what Alibaba Group President J. Michael Evans was talking about, or the feeling at least gels that he's talking about development of a carbon footprint tracker, which sounds really intrusive and is really disgusting, that he's hanging out in the place of like the most private jets in the whole world right now and talking about, oh, well, for all the little people who don't have private jets, we're going to have this app that tracks everything you do. That just sounds really unpleasant. So there you go. Hope that gives you a little more to think about with regards to the World Economic Forum. Yeah, there are ways in which you look at it, and looking at the lens through the Straits Times, as I was saying, looks like a great opportunity, to share world-changing ideas, talk about the things that governments can do, businesses can do to make the world better. Then there are very clear instances where it sounds like they're talking about how to control, the little people and how to make more money off the little people. Yeah. So you definitely can see what you want to see in this event, and there definitely are things that come across as extremely sketchy. Now, you know who's not in the World Economic Forum? Very smooth transition. Observe. North Korea fires apparent intercontinental ballistic missile, two missiles after Biden's Asia trip. So Joe Biden just left Japan after visiting Korea and Japan, announcing a few initiatives that were really boring, covered in my previous videos. You don't have to care about it. But he didn't go to the World Economic Forum, and isn't that remarkable? So in the time of before Donald Trump, which like ages ago, it's like an era ago, North Korea will be constantly firing missiles every which way, right? Threatening her neighbors. Japan would get very nervous. South Korea would be scared. United States would want to calm them down, saying, hey, if you don't stop firing those missiles, we won't give you... Okay, we'll give you some aid, right? Food aid, stop shooting missiles. And then it'll stop for a while. And then it'll start shooting it again. And they'll give again more aid. So it seems like we just got back to that status quo. And who led us there? Well, Mr. Joe Biden. Not a great diplomat. Very experienced. He's had decades of experience in government, but doesn't seem to be doing a great job here. Okay, moving on to something else entirely now. Totally going away from the World Economic Forum, but still on North Korea. So there was a wholesaler, distributor of beverages, who was charged with exporting Pokka drinks worth nearly $500,000 to North Korea. Turns out that North Korea enjoys, chrysanthemum tea, maybe lemongrass tea or something like that. Let's see, what do they have? Milk coffee, melon milk to North Korea. Isn't that great? Why is it that Singapore doesn't do trade with North Korea? Why? What has North Korea ever done to offend Singapore? It just feels very strange. In August 2019, news website NK News, and probably North Korea, reported that Pokka Singapore had pressured a distributor into hiding its dealings in North Korea. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs told the Straits Times that the authorities are investigating alleged export of Pokka products. Wow. I never thought that milk coffee would be the subject of an international diplomatic incident. But here we are in 2022. What else can surprise you? Seriously, why aren't North Korea allowed to buy milk coffee from Singapore? Right? Just sell it to them. I mean, the only other country I can think of that has a problem with Singapore is Russia. Russia has been sanctioned for waging war on Ukraine. But North Korea? They haven't been involved in a war since 1960 something, right? So just feels like feels a bit mean spirited even, Let them enjoy some milk coffee is what I say. Let them enjoy it. Now, yes, if you I could be very well accused of interfering in Singapore's domestic affairs just by talking about this. I live in Singapore, so it's something I'm very conscious of. So I will refrain from, further advocating on behalf of foreign agents or foreign countries. And I'll move on to my next topic. And truly, all the way across back to the United States, on this website, Task and Purpose, apparently it turns out it's very popular with military servicemen, men and women. Sailors are deserting the Navy at a staggering rate, it says, published May 20th. So that's very recent. And that sounds like a real worry, and not just for the United States. Why is this relevant? Well, it's because in ASEAN, in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of anxiety about China's Navy. China's Navy has been scaring the Malaysian Navy, scaring the Philippine Navy. I think they also rammed some Vietnamese fishing vessels. So they've been very, very assertive, and everybody's really terrified of that, but nobody really wants to talk about it. And everybody is slowly trying, for safety's sake, edging towards to be closer to the United States. But not only is Joe Biden not very good at foreign policy, his sailors are deserting the Navy at a staggering rate. And well, let's see. There's a numbers here saying 157 deserted the Navy last year, probably 2021, compared to 98 in 2020 and 63 in 2019. Yeah, that sounds like a terrible trend, right? Like, why is that happening? And nobody really knows why. The article gives a few suggestions like, poor funding, bad conditions, bad work conditions, living conditions. But all in all, it's very worrying because, yeah, Southeast Asia will be relying on the U.S. Navy, you know, to cooperate with it. Maybe some degree of protection, and if the U.S. Navy starts getting degraded in a very clear way, that would certainly, you know, not help the situation. So, yeah, that's something to pay attention to, and I think I may come back to this topic later on if there's more to be reported on. But that's what I got. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. I think it's a pretty short one today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hit, you know, like, subscribe, notification bell if you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much. I'm very appreciative. You know, I love you, my dear audience. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Talk to you again very, very soon. Thank you. Have a great time. Bye.